a couple of days ago, I came across this woman, and all she does is she talks about, hey,
You're trying to figure out your next career steps without doing this first.
combining short form video with quizzes, like the old BuzzFeed style quiz, and essentially getting a load of views, a load of people who want to go and try the quiz themselves, get them into an email list, and she is getting 500 subscribers a day, completely free, for recording like a 1.5 minute video every day. This is insane, and literally anybody could be doing this for basically any newsletter right now.
Now I'm excited about thinking through this.
I was talking to someone, they regularly launch like podcasts that go to the top 5 or top 10 in the charts. And a big part of the reason they can do that is because they buy a bunch of like seeded Instagram and TikTok accounts, and 99 point something percent of those accounts and those videos, they get less than like 2,000 views. They get nothing. But 0.1% of them will get 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 100 million views, will be the ones that crack it and go viral. It's so different to like what I would think of as like my day in social media, where you would be looking for the person who has the most followers because they can reach the most people.
Right.
And that's just not true anymore.
Oh man, times are changing. Thanks for bringing me back to reality there.
Hey dude, what's up?
Not too much, man. I'm a little bit mad at myself today. There's a big opportunity that you and I missed in the newsletter space, and I can't believe it. Two greats of the game that overlooked this. And maybe it's because it's not in our wheelhouse, but there are people out there who are squatting on Substack handles / domains. I'm not actually sure what it is, if it's a handle or a domain, but they're doing this and they're trying to sell it to brands. And I think this is a great idea. I wish I thought about it. But
Wait, what do you mean by squatting?
okay, so you know how people, early in the internet went and just gobbled up all the really cool URLs, and now people are doing it with the .ai, right? They're just going out and getting all the .ais, and then people started doing it on social media platforms. So they got all the really cool handles, and if a company started, they went out and got that handle before the company could get it.
So people are doing this on Substack. They're getting like, I don't know, like Apple's Substack handle, or I didn't even realize that Substack had handles. So
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Substack, right? The way Substack works, it's the company.substack.com. So, and I think you can get rid of that, but I think people want to have that, and that's almost becoming right like a thing, because we've talked about a lot. It's becoming more of a social platform. So now basically you have people that are going on claiming all these, squatting on them, and then they're going to try to sell them back to to the brands. Obviously that's interesting. I thought it was kind of cool and funny, but I think it's like it speaks to a bigger point, which is that there's a lot of brands out there right now that are trying to start Substacks and like almost using them as this weird pseudo social newsletter kind of bastard child. One of the ones that I saw this week was, or it started about, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's called Off the Cuff, and it's by American Eagle. I don't know if you guys have that where you're from. Probably, given the name, you probably don't. But basically,
it's like I lump all of those in together. There's like Abercrombie and Hollister and American Eagle. For me, that's all the same store, basically. Is that pretty much the vibe?
yes, that is it. So it's one of those things, like I shopped there probably when I was a teenager. Then I stopped shopping there because like every white guy in America, like I just started shopping at J. Crew and Banana Republic. They are apparently, I actually saw an interesting stat. They're like the number one denim seller to Gen Z in the country. So they're obviously still doing pretty well. I kind of thought they were done, but I thought it was super interesting that a couple of these brands, and there's also some other D2C, and it seems to be a lot of D2C fashion brands. So like the Real, Tory Burch, a few of these folks are getting on there. It's cool what they did. So they actually partnered with Casey Lewis. I don't know if you know her from After School. So it's like you probably would not. It's like a Gen Z kind of culture Substack that's absolutely huge. And so she's basically guest curating. And what they talk about in the newsletter is kind of like the culture of clothing and what's happening on social media and what people are talking about. And it's kind of cool. But I do have some bones to pick. And I have to preface this with saying, like, I'm certainly not the demographic, right? I'm not Gen Z. I'm not a woman, but I think some of the way they're going about it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I counted 36 words into the second, they've only done 2 so far. The second American Eagle off the cuff Substack, there was a link out to American Eagle to buy something, right? And it feels a little lame to me, or like disingenuous, that they're just trying to use it as another platform. Like, I thought they would be going on there to be basically try to get a seat at the cool kids table, right? To be like, we want to be seen as a really cool, interesting brand. I just thought it was weird that they're going to try to use it as just another email e-commerce platform, because quite frankly, I think they're going to be very disappointed, and the marketing team is going to give up on this real quick.
How are Gen Z people finding American Eagle Substack?
So I imagine, right, it's probably through like Casey, who again has after school Substack, which is massive, right? There's a couple of other, a ton of other fashion newsletters, beauty newsletters. So I think probably through that stuff.
So she's writing this on American Eagle's own like Substack
Yes, but
publication,
if you look at the
but they're
top,
recommending it as well.
yeah, it's kind of like a collab, right? So it's between the American Eagle account and which is probably owned by that guy who, was squatting. And then, Casey Lewis. So it's kind of like a what is that on social? Like a collab, post, something like
Got
that.
it.
So
So do those posts go out to Casey Lewis's like entire Substack audience, or do they just go out to the ones who opt into the Substack from American Eagle?
I cannot answer that question truthfully. I don't know. I don't know like how much that helps, or like how much clout that has. I imagine she has the opportunity, right? If she's creating the content and she's the author, that she can put it in her feed, on her newsletter, kind of wherever she wants. So here's the bigger problem I have with it, is that it seems strange that they're trying to almost like build this thing from scratch. Right. So they're, to your point, it's like they're building on Substack, which I get. There's a lot of discoverability tools on there. Everyone seems to be hopping on Substack for that reason. Like, that's cool. But the fact is that they're probably sitting on tens of millions of email addresses, right? That they're capturing from e-commerce. And I imagine they're, for a lot of reasons, they're not just porting over all of those people. But can I run you through some numbers real quick? I got a little nerdy this week.
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, so I wanted to figure out last year. So if they started at the beginning of last year, 2024, and they wanted to build an email newsletter based on just converting people from their e-commerce list. I went through the math here. So they did $5.3 billion in revenue. Let's assume that the average purchase price was $100, right? So that means, correct me if I'm wrong here at all, 53 million purchases, right? Let's assume
Math checks out. Yeah.
yeah. Let's assume that half of them were online purchases. I have no idea. I looked at their 10K. They don't actually break it out. Half of them are online. Let's call it 25 million purchases. Let's say they're super, super loyal. They're shopping there 5 times a year, right? So they're shopping at American Eagle online 5 times a year. That means that American Eagle has gotten at least 5 million people's email addresses just in 2024. Now,
Oh, it's
let's
probably way more than that, because you have most people who are paying in store right now, they're giving the email address to get the receipt sent to them. And then you're going to have at least double.
I mean,
that
I always
number
lie
who-
there. I'm not gonna lie.
You don't want the receipt?
Or if
Or
they ask
the,
me I just know my jeans are gonna fit really well. So
so I know these are great. I don't need that. But then the other thing is they're going to be doing like giveaways. They'll have like pop-ups on the site stuff, right? Like if
yeah,
they have 5 million
yeah,
customer
10%
email
off, right?
addresses,
Every time.
they're at 10 million easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just assume they have 10 million email addresses. You're gonna ask, right? Because you got to be careful about this, especially with like an e-commerce brand. You want to be super careful. You want everybody opting in. You got to hit a little click box. I want to get the off the cuff email, right? Let's assume, I don't know, you can convert 10% of them. That's a million person email address or email list in 1 year that's getting it. Yes, you're going to churn a bunch of people, but you're easily at, a couple 100,000 people, per year. And that's being like super, super conservative. And so you just build this email list with assets that you already have. You don't really need to do much more. I mean, you could put it on Substack, wherever. I don't know if they're doing this, but this is how, I would be building this brand. And I'd probably just be building as much loyalty as possible. Like, I just want to be top of mind when people are thinking about, buying jeans. So I don't know. I just think the approach seems a little half-baked to me. Like if they're truly just trying to grow on Substack like it's another social platform, I think they're going to get real tired of that and be like, "Oh wow, we got 20,000 people on this. That's cool, but what are we actually getting out of this?" And it's never going to compete with your actual like e-commerce, actions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have two thoughts on this. First, I love this as a strategy for a newsletter operator. I think more brands should do this, but a lot of them don't have the skills. And I wrote about 6 months ago, I wrote one of my newsletter editions
So you're
was
saying
on.
you're saying you think brands should be on Substack, or they should be collecting email addresses at checkout?
I think they should be turning the email lists they have into editorial newsletters, like
100%
you
agree.
were talking about, right? Like what you were suggesting.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like I was talking about this in my newsletter, and I was saying, hey, almost no D2C brands do this, but every single one has a huge list with 6, 7, 8 figure emails that they're doing essentially nothing useful with because they don't have the skills to do it. And I was saying, hey, the reason I was bringing this up was because someone asked me, hey, if you wanted to build a 1 million subscriber email newsletter today and you couldn't spend a whole load of money doing it, how would you try and do it? And I was like, okay, if I had to speed run this to 1 million subscribers, the way that I would try and do it is I would go out to a bunch of e-commerce brands and pitch them on the collaboration and say, hey, either you own this 50-50 with me, or I'll give you guaranteed like sponsorship rights or something like that, essentially, if you let me sort of carve off a portion of your audience. And I gave like 3 random examples I found using ChatGPT of D2C brands that didn't have a newsletter, but that were that size. These were just like random ones. 3 days later, one of my subscribers emails me back and says, "Hey, I took that dog D2C brand that you gave as an example in your newsletter, and I reached out to them, and they've agreed to partner with me on this." So I need to follow up with that guy because I've got no
Oh
idea what came
wow.
of it. But he actually got like the example from my newsletter to agree to do that.
Okay, we need to get that guy on. So before I started doing the consulting, that had been my thesis. Like even when I was at Barstool, I was like, every brand needs to have one. And I tried it. I did test it out with a brand. It didn't go particularly well. And for a handful of reasons. I don't think it was the right brand to do it with, but I'm very curious how it's going for that person. And I think it's probably just a matter of numbers, right? If you're working with a big enough brands, like you're gonna be able to build a decent editorial email newsletter, and you know the people are going to be the right people on the list, right? It is an interesting model. Um, I think that the probably the hardest part to your point is like convincing someone that it's a cool idea or even worth their resources. Cause I think there's still just this like, yeah, we use email. Like I was used to use the example of Best Buy, right? It's like, why doesn't Best Buy have, they're probably sitting on a couple 100 million email addresses, even if 10 million of them are good, it's like they could build an incredible, tech newsletter.
But to take this back to Substack, what's the bull case for being on Substack specifically? I guess one thing for me is that if you take your example of, okay, let's take the existing e-commerce email addresses and turn that into a newsletter, you're not reaching anybody new. You're probably going to do some really good things for retention and engagement and upselling and brand loyalty and everything with your existing audience, but you're not reaching anybody new. But I guess on Substack, the hope has to be, I don't know how much of it's a coolness thing, how much of it is just like, okay, well, literally, we're not sending anybody to Substack. So everybody who's coming in from there is by definition someone who is like new to us. What's your take on like the,
Yeah, I think it's
you had
I
to like convince someone that it was a good idea? Like, what would you be saying?
well, first I'd convince them not to. But yeah, I think the big thing is like one, it's probably more of like a FOMO thing for social media managers. Like they probably read one of those articles that we've been talking about on New York Times or an Ad Week or something. And they're like, we gotta be there, right? It's like so I think probably one, it's just like you want to build a presence on every platform, and if Substack is becoming more of a social platform, like go for it. Yeah, I think the discoverability, it's like I guess why not? Like if your audience is there and there's all these Gen Z brands, all these beauty brands that are on there. It's like why not try to pull people over? I just think right at the end of the day, some of these brands are just going to realize like most things that it's much harder than to keep writing like really good editorial content. And that's probably the reason that, none of them have done this before and like really just haven't started newsletters is because, yeah, it's difficult to do. It doesn't really have this like direct ROI right away, right? Unless you're, selling products, and it's just never going to be as good as your e-commerce. But yeah, and I think part of it is just like you want to be at the cool kids table. And right now, Substack is pretty damn sexy.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I have a slightly different take. Think it's I don't know if American Eagle specifically is going to come out of this doing really well, but I think being on Substack for a brand is probably going to be quite important. It's going to be quite useful to be one of the, I guess, quote unquote, early ones. And the big thing for me is like Gen Z people like reading, I think, as much as millennials for sure.
Nerds.
Yeah, they are absolutely nuts. But I think they see email and the inbox for what it is, right? It's like it's a super shitty experience. You only essentially do it because it's tied to work and it's not made for your phone. So where do you go both on like the long form content, but even like the short form text content? Like there is no platform for you. Twitter is essentially dead at this point. LinkedIn is just an insane place to be if you're under about 30 and is very work focused. And then all the other social media platforms are essentially video or image and video first, except for
Right.
Threads, which is kind of like has Facebook vibes, let's be honest. So where do you go? And especially for long form text, like Medium has essentially died. Nobody's who does everything on their phone is going to go and set up like a WordPress hosted installation and do all that. Same with Ghost. It takes way too long. Even a Beehive or a Kit or something, like you're not on a platform. It comes with a load of stuff and you have to pay for it at some point. It's kind of crazy from like the point of view of like 18 or a 20-year-old. Whereas Substack is like, it kind of makes sense. It's like, okay, yes, of course I want to receive this via an app and not via some weird thing where I have to read the content in my inbox, which is where I get like the occasional mail from college and some random discount emails from something I signed up to like 5 years ago.
So you think the value comes from the fact that they have an app, basically,
I think
not the fact that they're a newsletter platform.
I think the value comes from newsletters being the only content format, or long form content, written content being the only format of content that doesn't have discoverability and has never had anybody who really, really cares about the user experience. And if you were 18 or 19 or 20 and you're just starting to think about, hey, where do I want to go and read stuff? You would be insane to choose anywhere right now except Substack, I think, because the experience as somebody who has not had to put up with this over the last 20 years anywhere else is just awful, right?
I mean, is it fair to say, is Gen Z just discovering blogs?
I think that's pretty much, I think we are rediscovering blogs. I think Gen Z is discovering blogs. And I think they're also going like, no, we don't have to put up with like all this weird shit. Like this is like, I think to us like, oh yeah, so if we want to start a newsletter, okay, so we need to set up a website, we need to have a handle, we need to pay for the hosting, we need to worry about deliverability. Even the tools like Kit and Beehive and whatever that make this easy, like it's still not easy. You have to worry about what color things are going to be and everything like that. It's a lot of work. Right? And I think a Gen Z person, it's kind of like for me as a millennial, like I guess actually I'm a little bit too old for that, but like for my sister who's like 5 years younger than me, the idea to her that to roll down a car window, you'd have to like do this a bunch of times is absolutely insane, right? No, of course there is a button for that, or maybe I can even do it from my phone. Or just like voice control or something. And I think Gen Z see the way that we see newsletters is like, oh yeah, of course you're just going to go and do this. They're like, no, I'm not putting up with that just to read some content. Like, just give me the easy, quick button to do it.
Now this is just getting bigger picture. Now I'm excited about thinking through this. I guess it's fair to say like it's just content. It's internet written content, right? So do you see other people trying to do this and like build a platform? Because I think we've talked about before, Substack is basically, I thought this is brilliant what you said, is it's basically becoming the Spotify or the YouTube of, written word. So do you see some competitors emerging? Because it looks like, I imagine Beehive and Kit have absolutely no interest in being like, hey, we're going to create a platform. Or do you think there's an opportunity there for them?
I think for Beehive and for Kit and for ESPs, I think it's too risky because you have to switch your business model and you essentially have to turn off all the subscription revenue that you have to be able to do that. And you're offering your audience a very different product. So I think they benefit most from this by being the sort of the yin to Substack's yang, right?
They're SaaS companies, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. The bigger those platforms get, the better it is for them because they can shout about things that are quite, genuinely wrong with them, right? I don't see them going in that direction. Right now, Substack is still small. It's a really, really valuable audience, and it feels to me like what Twitter was in the early years. Like, it feels like a really interesting place, or like an Instagram in the early years.
Louis, I feel like you're
But
coming around on Substack.
oh, as a business, yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to be building my business on it right now. I feel
Right.
like building your business on Substack right now is probably most similar to building a Facebook page or a Facebook group. Like, when was that? Like 10 years ago, where you went
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
making millions of dollars a year to $1,000 a year literally overnight. I think it's a very, very, very dangerous thing to do. But I think while the going is good, some people are going to make a bunch of money in the early days. And
Right.
if it gets big enough, then I guess Meta is going to be the one most likely, right? Substack is not doing anything difficult. They're very, very good at what they do, but I think Meta is
Yeah.
probably better,
It's
and
it's
they have the
funny
audience.
because right, like I forget the names of them at this point, but Twitter and Meta both shut down what were essentially their Substack competitors, right? So like I feel like Substack probably right now has to be thinking like Zuck definitely sees this and he's got to be thinking about it, right? Because it's probably like the one thing he doesn't own is like a long form, and this could be a whole episode, but like WhatsApp, there's like a lot of interesting stuff happening over there too, where people could be reaching other folks, and I think like a WhatsApp, but for newsletters or blogs, like could be where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, and LinkedIn even has they have their newsletter product that could become more than that in like a professional space. I think if Substack continues to grow, they could start to think about that, and it could become interesting
Yeah.
or important. But yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, but I definitely am I'm a lot more bullish on Substack than I was a year or 18 months ago.
It'll be interesting to watch. Right now, it seems like right, like one category kind of infiltrating Substack, or like kind of Gen Z fashion, beauty seems to be having a moment. It'll be interesting to see if like tech starts using it a little bit more. Yeah, some other like major brands, like when Apple, creates a Substack, it'll be interesting. When Google creates a Substack, it's kind of like I feel like some of those, like Medium had its moment, right, where everyone was kind of on there. Like that's where all the CEOs went to give their thoughts on layoffs and like what's happening in the economy. And it'll be interesting to see if Substack has that moment.
I think they're in it. I think they are already there. I think the difference is that people are realizing that it has to be like persona first rather than brand first. So we're seeing more
Mhm.
individual people hopping on there. But I think we're definitely living through that right now. Like, a lot of authors have started, a lot of celebrities have started, a lot of people who have interesting things to share. Like, I don't know that it's necessarily the CEOs, but there are a lot of like execs and C-suite people who are jumping on with their own personal thoughts that are slightly separate from the brand, which again allows them to be interesting, which makes it better. So I think there is a lot of that
Who's going
that's
to be the
starting
first person to get fired because of their Substack? I'm sure it's already happened. But
Oh, people have already been fired for sure for their Substacks. Yeah, I mean the whole like Nazi thing was like a huge thing, right? Like, which was
yeah, that's a pretty big thing, for sure. Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. I guess that's to your point about like other people building this platform. Like that's the other concern is like Substack has said they're kind of going all in, like freedom of speech. Like you can, ISIS could go out there and make a Substack if they want, which that guy's probably squatting on, and they kind of talk about whatever. So I think that is super interesting. That's one way to grow a newsletter is through Substack, kind of the old fashioned way. I know you had something else you wanted to talk about that was like just at the opposite end of the spectrum, for how to grow a newsletter. So can you share this story with us? Because I went through it last night and I have some comments on it, but I'll let you take over.
yeah, sure. So I think we get to do my favorite part of the podcast right now, which is hopefully going to become a recurring segment, and we're calling "Look, Louis was right all along," which is where I get to come back and talk about something that I said that turned out to be true. A really pretty popular author has like 1.5 million email subscribers to her newsletter. She's developed this quiz that goes along with the newsletter. She talks about the quiz on NPR or wherever she's speaking, and then people always go from there to actually go and take the quiz to find out what the results would be for themselves. This is driving hundreds of thousands of subscribers for us, performing way better than anything else she's done. We're talking about like some interesting opportunities to build like 7-figure newsletters. And one of the ones that I talked about, I was like, I don't understand why nobody appears to be doing this right now, is combining short form video like TikTok and Instagram Reels with quizzes, like the old BuzzFeed style quiz, and bringing those two together on any topic, B2B, B2C, and essentially getting a load of views, a load of people who want to go and try the quiz themselves, get them into an email list. You can do amazing things with it. It's super easy to just rinse and repeat. You can do hundreds, thousands of subscribers a week. I said that, and of course, I didn't go do it because I got a billion things to do. Didn't really think about it again for a while. And then a couple of days ago, I came across this woman called Millie Tomati. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. And she runs the Generalist World newsletter, which is quite interestingly, it's not B2B as a newsletter, but it's definitely like for a professional audience. It's for people who would consider themselves generalists, and it's all about the world of work and how to find the right job role for them. This is not like, people doing dances and like five
Yeah.
home finds you need to buy to like make your house look nicer or something like that, right? This
So
is
this is a niche newsletter about journalists.
this is yeah, exactly. A niche general newsletter.
love it.
Exactly. But I mean it's a compelling thing. Like it's kind of cool, right? She's kind of owning that niche. Not many people are talking about it, but a lot of people feel spoken to with that. And I saw that she's adding 500 new subscribers to her newsletter every day, completely free, with exactly what I've been talking about, with a quiz and some kind of simple, good, but like really raw TikTok videos.
Walk me through, like, what am I watching on TikTok? What do I see on TikTok? And then how do I get suckered into joining this list so the people at American Eagle can be listening?
Yeah, so the good thing is that like one of the really smart things she does that we'll come to later is you wouldn't get suckered into this because she creates these TikTok videos. They're very well scripted, they're very well done, but they're very, very raw, right? It's just her talking to camera with like a basic screen on the background. And all she does is she talks about, hey, do you feel like this? Are you this way? Do you ever wonder this?
You're trying to figure out your next career steps without doing this first.
And she immediately speaks to that audience of people who would consider themselves generalists. And anyone who is in that audience is going to go, oh shit, yeah, that's me. And everyone else is going to go swipe, next thing, cool, dance, awesome, and carry on with their life. So she gets like that very specific group of people and they are hooked. And then they watch the video and it talks about some of the challenges and taking the quiz. And she does different things in the video, but it kind of follows the same format each time because she's doing one or two of these every day. And it all kind of comes to the same thing of like, hey, you should take this quiz too because it's going to help you. And in the last like 15, 20 seconds of this video, she has the URL of the quiz up there, like big on the screen. People can swipe away. They can go to their browser on their phone. They go and open it. They take this quiz. It's super easy. And to get their results, they need to give their email address. And she is getting 500 subscribers a day by doing this completely free for recording like a 1.5 minute video every day. Sometimes she'll get 1,000 views on that video. Sometimes she's had, I think, 200,000 or 300,000 views on a video. Essentially, it just comes down to like whether TikTok's algorithm likes that particular variant or not. This is insane, and literally anybody could be doing this for basically any newsletter right now.
This is a millennial timeout who doesn't use a lot of TikTok. Can you do swipe or like link clicks in a TikTok or no? How are they
I
actually
don't
getting?
think so. You can do to TikTok Shop. Yes, they want to keep you in platform. So
Right.
that's how they do like the e-commerce thing. But no, so you can either type out the link in the description, but then they have to like copy and paste it. They can't like click on it and go out. So that's one of the really smart things that she's doing is she didn't just use like newsletter.whatever.com/quiz, which nobody would bother to type in.
She didn't use a
She
bit.ly with
bought-
like a bunch of numbers and letters.
Exactly. No, she bought generalistquiz.com. And that is super easy to remember, right? You see that big on the screen for 30 seconds. You go, okay, I'm lazy, but I'm not too lazy to type in generalistquiz.com to go with that. I mean,
That's
she's crushing it
genius.
with that. The other thing that I love that she's doing, that I already mentioned actually, is the talking directly to the audience. Like basically saying, hey, if this is you, stick here, watch this. And people do. And if it's not you, scroll past. We don't need to find you. Let's make it easy for TikTok's algorithm to help us find the right people, basically.
Wow.
And then the way she's just doing this, it's like a comedian having basically like one joke and telling the same joke again and again and again with slightly different variants, but it's reaching different people each time. Like if you can walk into one room, tell a joke, change the words slightly, go to a second room, tell that joke, change the words slightly, go to the third room, tell that joke again. Like it's fine, right? And that is the difference, I think, between like a TikTok and like traditional long form video on YouTube, where you can't publish the same video again and again and again because people are following you and they're like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like you've already done this. On TikTok, you can do because there are so many people and the memory is so short and the retention is not there that you're just looking for discovery each time. You can literally do this again and again. I don't know. I think everybody should be doing this.
Is she doing this on
gonna start.
Instagram? Is she using real clips?
I don't think so. I think the exact same thing would work on Instagram. I think some people are just like more native to TikTok, and I think especially internationally, TikTok is a little bit more is like more of a thing. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the exact same thing would work on Instagram
Yeah.
for sure. I think it would even work on like LinkedIn and Twitter. Like, have you seen how hard they are pushing their short form video features right now?
Yes. Except our videos. Some of them haven't done very well, but that's okay. We'll get there.
That's because I haven't got the hook quite right.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll get there. It's the photoshopped shirtless videos of the two of us is what's setting it
Yeah,
off.
we gotta put that as the cover, I think.
But literally, if you go to LinkedIn for the short form video and you put anything that is even remotely interesting on there or
That
remotely well done with like an actual hook and everything, that is gonna pop off like crazy to the kind of
Yeah.
people who would like this. So I'm not a big fan of like organic growth where you have to create content to grow rather than just like setting up a repeatable system. But this feels like such an easy, replicable, almost like guaranteed thing that anybody could do that it does feel kind of crazy that there's people out there right now who are not doing this.
Maybe this is like the next big thing. I've been looking for like the next thing, right? Like I feel like we haven't had a good innovation or like a good hack in the the newsletter space that like really moved the needle. Where like if everyone jumped on it at once, like you grew exponentially. I feel like there've been those moments in newsletters, and we haven't had one in a while. This could be it, which is crazy. It's relatively simple. I looked it up. She's using the Score app, which I messed around with last night. Super easy to use. And yes, I started building out an app. I don't have it ready yet, but I can share it next week. We can walk through it, and you can roast it if you want. It's for the water
This is
coolers.
your quiz for the water coolest.
Yeah, I mean, we have a sizable Instagram. We have almost 200,000 people on Instagram. Like we do pretty well when we do some of these stories. We do, I want to say quizzes, more like hypothetical questions. Those seem to be having a moment on social, so those do really well. So I'm trying to think of an angle of how this fits into it. And I mean, you could even go another layers. I'm thinking the way we grew in the beginning with the water coolest, this is back in 2018, 2019, is we use a lot of influencers. But this is something that you could also go pay people to put in their story too, whether it's, what type of investor are you? Are you Bill Ackman? Are you Warren Buffett? Are you Jeff Bezos? Like what billionaire you are? You could have a lot of fun with these things. Like it's so cheap to make them on the Score app. You could just keep testing a bunch of them out, pay, an influencer to talk this up, do a video, and you're off to the races.
Absolutely. But this is where I'm going to be a little bit harsh. That's the millennial mindset right there, that we have to go and pay influencers because influencers have followers. And if you have a follower, then of course, people with more followers, you're going to get in front of more of them, right? And that was true in 2018. But now that everything is owned by the algorithms, doesn't matter how many followers that person has. You can literally either
Okay.
do it with AI, Jen, like, and you saw what Google launched yesterday with
Yeah.
is it VO 3
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Like, okay, we don't need humans for that anymore. But even if you
So
want to use
sick.
humans, you can go on like Fiverr. You can pay $20 for like 50 different people to go and do this. You then
You're
pay
saying I
someone
have to
else
make
who
really
has
good content, Louis? That's the only way?
yes, but the content doesn't even need to be that good. But you just need like 50 different accounts, right? And one of them is going to
Right.
pop off. I was talking to someone a couple of months ago about I can't share the name, I can't share which podcasts they work for, but they regularly launch like podcasts that go to the top 5 or top 10 in the charts. If you look and go and see like which podcasts make it there, they've worked with something like 2 out of 10 of like the last couple of years that have gone into that. And a big part of the reason they can do that is because they buy a bunch of like seeded Instagram and TikTok accounts. Like, and we're talking thousands of these accounts, and they will post the clips, different clips across these different accounts. And 99 point something percent of those accounts and those videos, they get less than like 2,000 views. They get nothing. But 0.1% of them will get 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 100 million views, will be the ones that crack it and go viral just based on like the initial couple of views. TikTok
Right.
goes, okay, yes, this is the one that I'm going to share with everybody. It's so different to like what I would think of as like my day in social media, where you would be looking for the person who has the most followers because they can reach the most people. And that's
Right.
just not true anymore.
Oh man, times are changing. Thanks for bringing me back to reality there. I do want to get back to Millie. Her name should be Millie because she's crushing it. So I went through her quiz. It wasn't super interesting to me, but obviously for good reason because I would say I'm not a generalist. I have a pretty specific knowledge base. But the interesting thing is she must read your newsletter, right? Because she's actually taking all of this stuff to get you into the funnel, and then when you're in her funnel, I don't know if you actually signed up and completed her quiz. The amount of stuff she starts sending you to kind of do the whole like negative CAC, right? Get her money back on acquiring you, even though it was free. So basically, it's just making money off of you. Within the first hour, I got 3 or 4 emails from her, which let's say, probably a little bit too many, but I think one was
I
from
don't agree. No, I think 3 or 4, it's great. I like
Wha
it.
one
I
was
think
from, the generalist quiz, it gave me my results. Then when you scroll to the bottom of that, the results, she tries to sell you, I think, a $49 course. 20 minutes later, I got another email, and she just she gives you her whole stack of what she used to build all of this, and it's, I think, 10 different affiliate links. It's like, Canva, Score App, Beehive, all the stuff in there, and then she, sends another one. It's like, make sure, she finally gets to the make sure that you put this in your inbox to get our email. And then she's going to monetize me today. I haven't gotten her email yet, but I was pretty impressed. Like she is doing all the things, like every single hack that, we talk about at the newsletter conference or, every tactic, she's doing all of them. She's got it on point. So, kudos to her. I think it will annoy some people. It certainly annoyed me to get that many emails all at once, but again, I think I'm probably a little bit old school here.
and you're not in her target audience, right? You're not the person who actually wants those emails. You're going through it as a test. But I am I just
I think generally I don't think I needed 3 emails from her in the first hour. It seemed a little overkill.
I think the people who will like it won't mind. I think it's like that. You know that like 3-day rule in dating where it's like, okay, you've got to wait 3 days before texting them back after the first date, blah 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 blah.
Well,
Otherwise, they'll think
I'm not saying I'm not a curmudgeon and I'm set in my ways. I certainly am. But there are some unwritten rules that probably need to be broken in the newsletter space. And to be fair, Miri, kudos to you. You're probably saving the newsletter space that old people like me are going to ruin. But I think, yeah, three's a lot.
I like it. Keep going. Ramp those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. I want to see 5, 10, 50. No, I don't want to see that
I'll
many.
let you know how many I get from her today. We'll see. We'll
It's
see
less
where
than
we
you'll
end
get
up.
from Market Beats if you sign up for their newsletter. I promise you that.
That is fair. Yeah, I get a lot of those. Those companies like the Motley Fools, the Market Beats of the world, they send you a lot of goddamn emails, but apparently a lot of people set it up. We should talk to some of those guys, I think, soon.
We should, and we should have it should be a Q&A of who what the most number of emails you've ever received from a newsletter within 24 hours or a week or something like that is. We should have that as a question on our Q&A episode, which speaking of, I think we are going to move over to, right?
That's a good segue right there. A plus.
Cool. Well, Taylor, I'll see you in the Q&A, and this will be out on the Q&A comes out on Thursday. We already have the questions for this one, obviously, because we're going to record it in about 30 seconds, but we do need some more questions. So if you would like your question about newsletters answered, if you just have something you're curious about, if you need some help with something or just want our take on something that's happening in the space, shoot us an email to, where is it, Tyler?
Letterlandpod@gmail.com. We need more emails to justify getting, the Letterland. I don't know, do we own Letterland.com?
We own letterlandpod.com. I think letterland.com is owned by a much bigger brand.
You're right. It's like a childhood phonics company or something. But yeah, letterlandpod@gmail.com. Shoot us any of your questions, stuff you want to hear us talk about. We'd love to, but we'll see you on the other side in the Q&A.